What's up, everybody? Today is June 6th, 2020. In this video, we're going to do something a little bit different today. Normally, I decode events that have already happened or organic events that occurred in my life. But today, we're actually going to be looking at a future date. Now, I've been making Gematria videos for about 3.5, going on 4 years. And on this channel, you've never really seen me make too many predictions. When we talk about predictions here on this channel, we typically talk about pointing out future dates and how they're relevant in relation to solar eclipses. And then I'll usually make a post or a video talking about who passed away that day, the date that I was talking about, and how it was by the numbers and everything. But I've never really made a prediction as for a particular person or anything like that. And I'm not sure whether to call this a prediction video or not. But I just want people to be aware that what I've been tapping into as far as the year 2020 and how significant it is for the world, basically in the year 2018, early on, when I first started my blog, I pointed out that the year 2020 seemed to be very significant. And my research into this started with looking into the TV series called 2020. Now, 2020 became a TV series on the date June 6th, which is today's date, June 6th, 2020, meaning as of today, this show is exactly 42 years old. And I couldn't help but notice a litany of revelation numbers in this. And, you know, in the book of Revelation, the beast rules for 42 months. And this is actually, the number 42 is mentioned twice in the book of Revelation. It says, the holy city shall they tread under foot 40 months. This is Revelation 11:2. And then Revelation 13:5 says, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 months. Well, June of 2020 is Donald Trump's 42nd month as president. And of course, you know, the media always calling him out for saying blasphemies in the media. And there's actually numerical alignments here. The decode will become a much more clear thing after this little glance into Revelation. But think of Revelation 11:2. 112 is the reverse value of Donald. The second verse of Revelation mentioning 42 months has 112 letters. Well, notice how the first verse has 138 letters. The second verse has 138 characters. This is the ordinal value of Donald Trump, 138. So it makes me wonder if this is coded in here. And there's more interesting numbers here as well. 216, we'll get into this. 227. Revelation 13:5 might also be very important because we're going to talk about how the death of Kobe Bean Bryant was potentially perhaps the most major foreshadowing of what looks like it could be a Trump assassination. Now, I guess what I better get clear out of the way while I'm making this video is that, of course, I believe that a presidential assassination would be staged, probably completely fake, just like everything else we see on TV. So in no way whatsoever should anyone viewing this video, you know, construe this video or post as encouragement for anyone to try any assassination on anyone. You'd be an idiot. You know, I never condone violence on this channel. That's not what this is about. What this is about is exposing what the mainstream media is doing, which is by the numbers, everything by the numbers. And it kind of dawned on me, you know, these predictions that I made back in 2018, how accurate they were. Maybe I should look a little bit further. And when I started to think about June 20th, everything really came together. And I could not think of an event that didn't align perfectly with June 20th, 2020. And just to let you guys know about how I got into this prediction business in the first place. So again, back in the year 2018, I pointed out the numerology of the series 2020 and how it may be pointing to June 2020, June and July 2020. And in this post, I said, well, you know, is there something major planned for the year 2020? And now we see there's been a lot of major things planned for 2020. The coronavirus, the George Floyd incident, it's really changing the world. as we see it. So I figured 2020 might be a good candidate, and absolutely I was correct. Well, in another post, also in 2018, I mentioned how that event was likely to occur in Seattle. And I talk about the numerology of the Space Needle. Of course, the Space Needle, perhaps symbolic of a vaccination needle. Well, the city of Seattle, a suburb of Seattle, was the first place in America where coronavirus was diagnosed. So I nailed essentially two predictions. And if you go back in my blog, you don't see predictions of future events. The only time I do it is when I'm really feel like I'm catching on to something. So when I called the Super Bowl, for instance, earlier this year, I said there would be a big comeback in the fourth quarter by Patrick Mahomes. And there was, because he was the comeback kid. The name Patrick Mahomes equals 477. He was born on 917, and Joe Montana equals 477 and 917. Mahomes essentially took the place of Joe Montana. It was the Chiefs' first win in 50 years in the Super Bowl. Chiefs equals 50. And if Mahomes was Joe Montana, the Chiefs would be 5-0. Or I'm sorry, Montana would be 5-0 in Super Bowls. So anyways, these two predictions that I made, it wasn't an exact date or anything, but I thought it was pretty fascinating that here we are in 2020 and we're talking about all these global life-changing events. So I looked a little bit deeper, and basically the date June 20 just popped out at me, and ever since it's been a bevy of blog posts. So currently I have 4 blog posts on these. One is on the general numerology. One is connecting Donald Trump to the 1331 eclipse code. We're going to talk about the 2017 Grenfell Tower fire in London on Trump's birthday, which could have been a premonition for June 20th. And then we'll also look at a little bit more on the death of George Floyd, Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, and how it could all be pointing at June 20th. So let's get into this. Now, the date June 20, when you write this out, sums to 2020. This is what I led off with, but perhaps it's one of the least significant things. I want to point out how the word sacrifice has this gematria of 26, 206. The date June 20th can be written 20/6. And then the phrase human sacrifice equals 620, which again is also like the date June 20th. So let's get a little bit into why Donald John Trump could be coded for an event like a television assassination. Notice how his name sums to 68 in reduction. Trump was born on the same date as a total lunar eclipse. We'll look at how a Trump assassination could be related to eclipses. The word crucifixion also equals 68. We're going to look a lot at the gematria of crucifixion in this video. And we're going to talk about how this is all related to the assassination of Martin Luther King in the year 68. Not only was MLK killed in 68, but the man who was convicted of killing him was arrested on 6/8/68. But again, 68 is the number for total lunar eclipse. And I have this post on the moon landing, the 1969 Apollo 11 moon landing hoax. Of course, there was no moon landing. These astronauts were just orbiting around the Earth in the sky. And this was essentially a major total lunar eclipse ritual. It was 570 days before the next total lunar eclipse. The word moon equals 57, July 20th equals 57. It was also related to the next total lunar eclipse. It was, I think, 410 days before. Actually, 41 weeks after the most recent total lunar eclipse. And that was significant because the moon landing was 4,010 days after NASA was established. Moon landing summing to the 41st prime. Well, if you measure from the date of the moon landing to the date June 20th this year, you get exactly 611 months. The word assassination has this 611 in Jewish Gematria. It's also 50 years and 11 months. And this number represents 511, a number for Saturn in Jewish Gematria. And Saturn is very significant to the numerology of Donald Trump, so you would assume that the numerology of Saturn would be coded into his death if that does indeed occur. Donald Trump was sworn in with the 115th Congress. He was elected on November 8th, which is 151, and he ran his campaign for 511 days. And in numerology, this is all really significant. Notice how in octal, 511 is 777. And when you add every number up, 151, 115, and 511, you get 777. This is the first number to sum to 314 in the alphabetic order. But 777 is also the value of cube of Saturn. And on the date that Trump took office, he was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old. Now, whenever we're talking about Saturn, which is called the Black Sun, another important number is 54. And this is because the sun passes Saturn in the sky every 54 weeks. And this brings us to the Grenfell Tower fire, which occurred 54 minutes into the day on Trump's birthday, his 71st birthday. So, guys, if you if you're getting ready for a short, quick video today, that's probably not going to happen. I suggest everyone kind of strap in because we're going to look a lot at June 20th. And again, I hate to call this a prediction because predicting such a specific event, pretty difficult, should be impossible, but something incredibly ritualistic is going to occur on this day. I don't have any doubt. So let's talk more about this. June 20th in Gematria. Notice how this sums to 174. This year, June 20th falls exactly 174 days before the 2020 total solar eclipse. June 20th is also a span of 1 week after Donald Trump's 74th birthday. 174. We'll see here going from Donald Trump's June 14th birthday, with the end date included. Notice how he'll be 74 years and 1 week old. In English Gematria, Saturn equals 741. (741) is a triangular number. You add every number 1 through 38, you get 741. And 38 is a significant number of death. Death, killing, RIP, murder, all of these, 38. I think when you write 38 out in Gematria, you may even get Gematria of 888, 38 equaling 888. And this stands out because in standard Sumerian, Donald J. Trump, 888. And check out how 74 years is also 888 months. These are all Jesus numbers as well. Remember, in ordinal, Jesus equals 74. In Greek, Jesus equals 888. Now, June 20th is 1,388 days before the second Great American Total Solar Eclipse. And 1,388 days is exactly 3.8 years, down to the 10,000th of a decimal. In Hebrew, moon equals 38. And 38 is a number that's sort of followed Trump around a little bit. His campaign slogan is Make America Great Again, which is 163. This is the 38th prime number. And the number 163 is coded into his into June 20th in relation to total lunar eclipses. It would be 16 months and 30 days after the last total lunar eclipse. It's also 163 days before a regular lunar eclipse on November 30th. And really, November 30th is essentially one of the biggest dates connected to the 1331 eclipse code. So we'll talk about this in a little bit. The next total lunar eclipse would be 340 days after June 20th. 34, number of murder. Trump's initials, giving us a 34. This would be a crucifixion ritual. Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, sums to 340. Notice the 146 in reverse. Trump's birthday is 14/6. Jesus Christ also equals 14/6. George Floyd dead on the 146th day of a leap year. But we're going to connect June 20th to so many things. The death of Kobe Bryant, for one, which led off 2020, the big event. We're also going to connect it to the assassination of JFK, the last president to be assassinated. We're going to connect it to Donald Trump's visit to the Western Wall, how this is related to the 9/11 ritual from 2001. We're going to look at the numerology of Mike Pence, how June 20th is a good date for him to become president. And we'll also compare this to the August 11th numeric ritual from last year, the Golden Gate alignment. And remember, again, guys, this is an event that hasn't even happened that I'm decoding, so trust me if I've questioned myself whether or not I'm going overboard in looking at this date, but if I didn't think it was phenomenally significant, I wouldn't be doing this. And then we have more posts to go on after this. So we're going to talk about Donald Trump and the 1331 code, the Grenfell fire, MLK, George Floyd. All right. Now, if you measure from the last total solar eclipse, actually not the last one, but the 2017 Great American Total Solar Eclipse, to the date June 20th, we get 2 years and 304 days. And we'll look at the rest of these measurements, months, weeks, and days, but this one stuck out right away. 2304. Why would that stand out? Well, I want you to think about the axis of the Earth. The equator is tilted 23.4 degrees from the plane of the sun. This leaves a 66.6 degree angle of the Earth's axis to the plane of the sun. And when you add 234 plus 432, you also get 666. And of course, the Kobe Bryant ritual completely coded around the number 666. I have a post specifically explaining 666 eclipses and Kobe Bryant. Of course, I also have a video explaining how 666 is the number behind the COVID-19 agenda. All working together. This measurement here is also 147 weeks. I said months on the post, but it's weeks. And 147 is interesting. Crucifixion of Jesus Christ gives us a 147. I believe there's 147 windows on the White House. President of the United States equals 147. And this would be 147 days after the death of Kobe Bryant. June 20th to Kobe Bryant, 147. I also mentioned how without the end date it would be 146 days. This is another number, Jesus Christ, 146. Trump's birthday, 14/6. But looking back at the eclipse with the end date, notice how it's 2 years and 305 days. And this also connects us to Kobe Bryant because he was born on the date August 23rd, which is the 235th day of the year. So let's dig deeper into the basic gematria and just see if we can find more connections. So here's Kobe's birthday, the 235th day of the year. This is also the date leaving 130 days in the year. 130, a number of human sacrifice, 130. But look at the reverse value of human sacrifice, 248. This is very significant to Kobe Bryant, who wore numbers 24 and 8 with the Lakers. Now, this isn't in the post, but something that is really significant to the Kobe Bryant ritual that I never hear anyone talking about is the Royal Rumble. So Kobe Bryant, Kobe equals 33 in Gematria. And the same day he died was the same date of the 33rd Royal Rumble match. The WWE's Royal Rumble, the 33rd. And it happened in Houston, Texas, where George Floyd is from, so that's going to be significant. So here we are, the 33rd event under the Royal Rumble chronology. Well, Royal Rumble equals 888. And Kobe died exactly 888 days after the Great American Eclipse. Remember, eclipse equals 33. Royal Rumble 888. It's also perfect. And we talked about this number related to Donald J. Trump. And how potentially, if Pence were to take over, Trump and Pence gives us this 888 also. Donald Trump turns 888 months old this month. But think about this human sacrifice in 248, Kobe Bryant, who wore numbers 24 and 8. Well, look at the gematria of Trump assassination. 248. How interesting is that? And as far as the 238, Kobe Bryant was born on the 23rd of August. 23/8. Now the 238, I always say this is a significant number because 666 equals 2038. They tell us the moon is an average of 238,000 miles from the Earth. Well, the number 666, so significant, and I'm actually going to skip ahead to this post because it just blew my mind when I was decoding this, guys. And it's like everywhere you look, this lines up. So, okay. The same date that George Floyd died, this was May 25th. Sorry if I'm scrolling around fast here. I'm trying to find this. Well, the date May 25th, I woke up and made this post. And this was about Donald Trump threatening to move the GOP National Convention out of North Carolina on May 25th, right? And I talked about how this was all a numeric ritual with the governor. I pointed out the 271 with Trump, the 58th prime, Roy Cooper, 58. Well, this is the date that George Floyd died, later that day. And it just so happens that George Floyd, they tell us he was born in the state of North Carolina. Now, this GOP National Convention was scheduled for the date August 24th. And August 24th is written 24/8. Like Trump assassination. 248. Now, if you go back 666 days from June 20th this year, you get the date 24/8, August 24th of 2018. Of course, 18 is interesting. 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 18. And then June 20th has 66 numerology. 2020 became a show on June 6th, turning 42 years old today. The 42nd month of Trump in office occurs on a date with 66 numerology, Revelation, the 66th book of the Bible. Now, 666 days before June 20th, this big date for Donald Trump, I looked back at August 24th because I wanted to see if anybody notable died. And it turns out I did do a murder by numbers post on August 24th of 2018, and guess who it was? Robin Leach dead 666 days before June 20th. Now, why is this interesting? Well, we'll get into the numbers in a second, but think about Robin Leach, what he's primarily known for. He hosted a television show called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And how did Donald Trump become president? Well, it's because he's rich and famous. In fact, in the year 1994, Donald Trump was interviewed by Robin Leach on his television show. So 666 days before June 20th, we get the death of Robin Leach. Now check this out. The name Robin Leach sums to 87. Well, look at this. 666 equals 87. If we instead write 666, we get 95. The name Robin Douglas Leach equals 95. His name in reduction equals 76. He died at the age of 76 years old. And look at the reverse value. Donald John Trump, 76. Now, if you measure from Leach's birthday to Trump's birthday, you get exactly 250 weeks, like the number 25 in numerology. Trump 25, Leach 25. This is a number of death, 25. On the date of Leach's death, he would have been a span of 1,085 days older than Trump will be on June 20th. 185, the ordinal value of Donald John Trump. So that's pretty interesting. So the 666 connection, but why did I even think to look back like this? Well, the number 666 is heavily coded into the date June 20th and June 21st. Now, I mentioned two dates here. Well, it's always important to understand that we're dealing with something called the rule of Colel, right? And this is the idea that there's, any number, because one is not technically a number, it can be added or subtracted from any value and you still get the same thing. So I don't talk about it often, but it's not just the date June 20th that's significant this year. It's also the date June 21st. Now, June 21st is the summer solstice every year. And on the summer solstice in the year 2001, the same year as the 9/11 attacks, there was a total solar eclipse on the summer solstice. This is something that only happens once every about 450 or 500 years. Now, exactly 19 years later is one Metonic cycle. And of course, June 21st falling one day after the 20th. Now, in the year 2020, we're going to get another solar eclipse on the date June 21st. It's not a total solar eclipse, it's an annular eclipse. June 21st, 2020, exactly 19 years later. But the date June 21st, written 21/6, like the number 216. 216 is the product of 6 times 6 times 6. Now, what's really interesting about June 21st this year? Well, the 2016 election was held on November 8th of 2016, as you see here. If you measure from the 2016 election to the date 21/6 this year, you get 1,321 days. Why is that significant? Well, 1,321 is the 216th prime number. And how about this? Remember, 216 is 6 times 6 times 6. If you measure from the JFK assassination to 21/6, you get 20,666 days. June 20th, with the end date included, it's the same thing, 2666. Now let's look up JFK and check out his birthday, May 29th of 1917. One day before June 20th, this man would be 103 years and 21 days old. Remember, 1321, the 216th prime. 216, 6 times 6 times 6. June 20th and 21st, exactly 20,666 days after the JFK assassination. And I want you to think about the year 63. If you were to add every number, 1 through 63, you get 2016. And that's the year Donald Trump was elected. The word kill equals 44. JFK won the 1960 election. That was the 44th election, I believe. Let me double check. Yep. The 44th quadrennial election. So Kennedy won the 44th election, and now Donald Trump is the 44th man to be president in the United States. So, guys, it's like we're just getting started. I feel like I've already shown enough that there's something going on with June 20th, but we're just going to keep this train rolling, guys, because to me, I don't think, like, I've never stumbled across anything like this. And I'm just going to go and decode everything. All right, so let's talk about the crucifixion code again. Real quick, pulling up Google Translate. We're going to do some English to Greek and point out how the name Jesus has Greek isopsephy of 888, right? Donald J. Trump, 888. And on June 20th, he'll be 888 months old. He'll also be 74 years old, which is the English value of Jesus. So the crucifixion code definitely in play here. Trump and Pence equals 888. Pence would be taking over for Trump. And check out how Mike Pence would be 61 years and 13 days old on June 20th. 61 and 13, both numbers related to Jesus. 61, 13. So Trump is president number 45. And this is going to lead us more into the Kobe Bryant numerology. Notice how 45 equals 126. Kobe Bryant dead on 126. Exactly 1 week before Super Bowl 54. Kobe Bean Bryant equals 54. 45 equals 54 and 45. But here's something else that's really wild. If you type in presidential assassination, first of all, we get a 103. JFK will be 103 years old. Or he just turned that. But look at Jewish Gematria, 1034. From the Great American Eclipse to June 20th is 1034 days. Now this is also 1035 days. Kobe Bean Bryant equals 135. Remember, he died in relation to Trump's numerology with the 888. 888 days after the eclipse. But what's also interesting about 1035 is that on that date is when we would also be inaugurating the 46th president. And look how 46 equals 46 and 1035. The planet Venus equals 1035. And Venus has a lot of overlap with Kobe Bean Bryant. And it was actually the death of Kobe that made me realize the Venusian quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo would lose in the Super Bowl. I mean, check out Venus, 81, 54, 135. Kobe Bean Bryant, 81, 54, 135. So when Kobe died, he was 67.33 Venusian years old, because Venus takes 224.7 days. And notice how Kobe equals 67 and 33. He even died on a date with numerology of 67. So last year, 2019, we talked a lot about the word chaos. Chaos summing to 19. Well, June 20th is 19 days after June 1st. And think about flipping this number upside down. It would be 6-1, like the date June 1st. Remember, this would be 19 years after the total solar eclipse of 2001, which was celebrated by the 9/11 attacks with 19 hijackers. So Trump, on June 1st, he threatened martial law. And it's interesting because Floyd equals 19. 19 days later would be June 20th. Well, June 20th is also 26 days after Floyd died. Notice how Floyd equals 26. I think riot equals 26. The word sacrifice, summing to 206, a lot like 26, but look what's even more interesting. Measuring from 206, 20/6, to the death of Kobe Bryant is 20 weeks and 6 days. And Kobe played for the Lakers, which equals 206. With the end date, this is 21 weeks. Lakers equals 21. June 20th has primary numerology of 66. Lakers equals 66. Lakers also equals 42. This would be Trump's 42nd month as president. Remember, the beast rules for 42 months in Revelation. Beast, 47:88. Trump, 47:88. So this means on Inauguration Day, or measuring from Inauguration Day to June 20th, 41 months and 1 day, with the end date, 41 plus 1 is 42. But the number 411 sticks out. The JFK assassination, said to have been carried out by Lee Harvey Oswald, who was fired from the Texas School Book Depository, whose address is 411 Elm Street. And a long time ago, Zach did a post talking about how 411 Elm Street was an address mentioned on the Andy Griffith Show 2 years before the assassination. The word assassin equals 411. And that Andy Griffith Show was on Christmas 411. So looking again at the JFK connections, we pointed out the significant 216, 1321 alignments. Also, in relation to Trump's age, notice how he would be 74 years and 7 days old. That's the satanic gematria of JFK assassination, 747. And isn't it interesting that on the date JFK was assassinated, it was the first day of Trump's 911th week since he was born? Remember, Donald has that 119 gematria. And now we got the George Floyd incident, George Floyd 119. Something else that's really interesting here. On the date JFK was assassinated, Trump was 17 years and 23 weeks old. 1723. The holiday Saturnalia, which is celebrated by sacrifice and all these other strange rituals, occurs from the 17th through 23rd of December. And using square numbers, Saturn equals 1723. So I led this video off talking about how the numerology of Saturn would be coded in to Trump's assassination, and here you go again. Also Saturn 21 and 42, Lakers numbers. All right. Next, we're going to look at this 9/11 connection because we just pointed out how Donald equals 119, like George Floyd. Well, there's something very significant connecting Donald Trump to the World Trade Center and Solomon's Temple. Using the alphabetic order, World Trade Center equals 185. Donald John Trump also equals 185. And think about how the COVID-19 pandemic was declared by the World Health Organization exactly 18 and a half years after 9/11. In the year 2020, Donald John Trump 2220. Well, remember, World Trade Center, that whole ritual, the destruction of the two temples, was a ritual related to Tisha B'Av, which is a holiday that commemorates the destruction of the two temples. Solomon's Temple equals 185 in reverse. Now, if you measure from 9/11/2001 to June 20th of this year, you get 6,858 days. 6,858. Solomon's Temple, 6,858. Remember, World Trade Center construction started in 68. And as far as 58, Donald Trump, sworn into office on a date with 58 numerology, he won the 58th presidential election. It was held 58 years after the year 58. He hired a 58-year-old to conduct the ceremonies. He announced his candidacy from the 58-story Trump building. Using prime numbers, Donald John Trump equals 580. And the 58 significant to Second Temple, Herod's Temple, Third Temple, all of this 58. So how interesting that June 20th lines up perfectly to 9/11, Solomon's Temple numbers. Just like how Trump shares Solomon's Temple Gematria with World Trade Center. It's almost too perfect. The Gematria of June 20th, 2020 lines up with the date even that he visited the Western Wall, 5/22. Notice how this is also 160 weeks. The word assassination equals 160. June 20th is the Gemini Cancer cusp, which is 160. Summer solstice lines up as well. June 20th would be 101 days after the coronavirus was declared a pandemic, Assassin 101. And let's glance at Mike Pence now. Not for too long. The guy kind of creeps me out. But it's important to note that Mike Pence is currently the vice president for the 45th U.S. president. Mike Pence equals 45 in both reduction methods, 45 and 45. So if he were to become president on June 20th, he would be the 46th president. 6 plus 20 plus 20 equals 46. But remember, this has a lot to do with Minnesota, where the George Floyd incident occurred. Now, the state of Minnesota became a state on May 11th of 1858, meaning that this year it turned 162 years old. This is interesting because Minneapolis, where Floyd was killed, has the 612 area code. The name Mike Pence equals 162. And if he were to be inaugurated on June 20th, he'd be exactly 61 years and 2 weeks old with the end date, 612. And then just real quick, last year, I did a big post, a really popular post and video on the date August 11th. Now, in that video, I said, this numerology is so good that I guarantee you nothing will happen on that day. Well, I didn't really say it quite that way, but I did say that this was, the coding was too good for a major false flag. That instead, something big would be occurring in relation to this date. And June 20th You know, knock on wood, it falls 314 days, the pi number, after August 11th. Think about 3 hours and 14 minutes on a clock. That's 194 minutes. June 20th, the date that leaves 194 days in the year. And remember, this had to do with San Francisco, where the Golden Gate Bridge is. San Francisco was 4,545 weeks old when the Golden Gate Bridge was inaugurated. Golden Gate 45 and 45. Also 239. June 20, 239. And the date August 11th, 8/11, remember, Trump was elected on 11/8, also written 8/11. And measuring from the election to the death, to June 20th this year, we get a lot more interesting numbers. 43 months, 13 days. Floyd Mayweather was 43 years and 13 weeks old when George Floyd died. I think Kanye West will be 43 years and 13 days old on June 20th. Check out Kanye West, who this man himself is a walking crucifixion riddle. Kanye West, born June 8th of 77. This guy is a Trump supporter. He walks around in a MAGA hat. He'll be 43 years and 13 days old on June 20th. And look at his frickin' birthday. June 8th, 6/8. 68, the year of the Martin Luther King assassination. Crucifixion equals 68. And then he was born in the year 77. Christ, 77. Of course, there's so much more here. Kanye West equals 33. Christ crucified at 33. Also 123. Crucifixion of Jesus Christ, 123. And also notice the 303 in ordinal. Think about modern Freemasonry. The premier Grand Lodge of England, founded June 24th of 1717, meaning that this year, Freemasonry turns 303 years old. Could it be that Freemasonry is going to do a major crucifixion of Jesus Christ ritual right before they turn 303 years old? I wouldn't put it past them. You know, they've done that before around their birthday. I have a lot of suspicions about the death of Chris Benoit, which occurred on Freemasonry's 290th birthday. Christ equals 290, like the name Christopher. Eclipse sacrifice, 290. How you guys doing out there, by the way, in the chat? This has been a long, crazy video. We're almost 50 minutes in. We're talking about all sorts of significant events lining up to June 20th, the first day of Trump's 42nd day in a month in office. So again, I don't know if this is pointing at an assassination. I've been obviously hinting about that several times throughout this video, but maybe it'll be something else. All I know is that this is an important video, and hopefully someone saves this. I know I'm going to be downloading it and saving it and uploading it elsewhere just in case I'm right. What if I'm right, guys? What if that really happens? Imagine how that would change the game. But I almost wonder, too, if making this video would then change the future a little bit. But I don't think a couple hundred people is going to change the entire course of history, if you know what I mean. So let's talk about this eclipse code. It's all about the crucifixion of Jesus. It's all about the eclipse crucifixion code. And for years now, I've been talking about this significant 1331 total solar eclipse, the only one of that year. In Jewish Gematria, 1331 eclipse equals 1331. And I've never, ever seen another total eclipse whose path of totality never touches a major body of water. This is all over land. And this eclipse fell on the date November 30th, the only date to sum to 1331. Now, even before I learned about this, I already knew 1331 was a significant number, because 133 equals 1331. So does 331. The only other number to have this gematria is 393. And think about these two numbers, 1331, 393. Here you have 133 and 331, and then you have 39 and 93 reflections. And 13 times 3 is 39. 31 times 3 is 93. So these are all connected. It's just incredible. And then 1331 is 11 to the third power, 11/3. Well, November 30th, the date that sums to 1331, is written 11/30. And it leaves 31 days in the year, which is the 11th prime. So here's what's really wild. There's so many interesting alignments with this in the crucifixion, and I'm not necessarily saying the crucifixion happened in 1331, but there seems to be some consistent coding. So 1331 sums to 226 in reverse. In Greek, Jesus Christ equals 226. Crucifixion of Jesus, 226. Remember the World Trade Center bombing on 226. (1331) eclipse equals 131, a lot like the number 1331. Crucifixion equals 131. Also, 1331 equals 1139 in Jewish or Latin. Crucifixion equals 1139. Now this number was coded into the governor of Minnesota. Remember, twins equals 1139. This is why Minnesota has the Twin Cities. Stephen Jackson calling George Floyd his twin. Let's briefly look at the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, and just show you how the number 1331 was coded into him. And the mayor, Jacob Fry. Actually, let's start with Jacob Fry, because it's more obvious with this guy. This is the mayor of Minneapolis, and he was put in office specifically for the George Floyd ritual, believe it or not. Doesn't matter if you believe it, it's a fact. Look at the name Jacob, 1331. He was born on 7/23/81. His birth numerology, 130, 31. And look at the date that he became mayor of Minneapolis, 1/2/2018. Look how many days old he was. 13,313 days old, okay? Are you kidding me? This guy's a 1331 machine. 1,331 sums to 2929 in English gematria. Typically, eclipses will, I think it'll be like 29 lunar phases between total eclipses is like the longest you can have. Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, born April 6th of 64, 4/6/64. Well, on the date that George Floyd died, he was exactly 2,929 weeks old, tying us directly to the number 1331. Now, if we write out 1331 like this, remember I said this is 1139, like crucifixion? Well, Tim Walz took office on January 7th of 2019, which is 1 year and 139 days before the death of George Floyd. So 1331 coded heavily into the mayor and the governor of Minnesota. Now, why Minnesota for a crucifixion ritual? Well, Christ equals 32. The state of Minnesota was the 32nd state admitted to the Union. 32nd, and it was admitted on May 11th. May 11th is the 131st day of the year. Crucifixion equals 131, and 131 is the 32nd prime number. This brings us to the word assassinated, which equals 32 and 131. Assassinations, crucifixions, all coded together. And again, I think this is pointing at the potential Trump assassination date. Also notice the 85, like crucify, 85, Donald Trump, born on a date with primary numerology of 85. So I also mentioned how twins equals 1139, this crucifixion number. And Minneapolis and St. Paul are the twin cities. The Twins play baseball there. And we have these twin eclipses, which we're right between right now here in 2020. The first of those twin eclipses occurred on the 233rd day of the year, which is 1331 in ordinal. But here's what I wanted to get to, which I think is the most significant from this. So we're talking about the 1331 eclipse, 1130, 1331. Notice how this also has numerology of 85. And isn't it interesting, guys, that Donald Trump was born 614 years after the 1331 eclipse on the date June 14th, 614. Now, if you count backwards 6 months from June 14th, you get 1214, and then you go 14 more days and you get 1130. So he's born 614 years, 6 months, and 14 days after the 1331 eclipse. Jesus Christ, 14:6. Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, 146. And there's a lot of deep things to this code. You know, when we look at 2020, we find that we're currently 688 years after the 1331 eclipse. And let's actually make this a little more clear. So exactly 688 years after the 1331 eclipse brings us to 2019. 688 years equals 2019. And remember, the very next day, December 1st, is when we got the first coronavirus case. Also notice how 688 years gives us 2016, the year that Trump was elected. Total solar eclipse equals 202 ordinal. June 20th falls 202 days after the date November 30th. That's without the leap year. Oh boy, so many interesting things, guys. Also, this is 29 weeks with the end date. 29 weeks, 0 days. Remember, the name Christ equals 290. With the S exception, Jesus equals 29. Eclipse sacrifice, 290. Crucifixion of Donald Trump, could it be? Could it be 290? I don't know. Also, something else I wish I noticed earlier is 1331 sums to 1889. And 1889 was a significant number in a post I made regarding Joe Montana and the Montana Bowl. Now, in this post, I pointed out how Montana became a state in 1889. And then Joe Montana Bowl equals 1889. Montana entered the league the same year that a total solar eclipse crossed over the state of Montana. So I thought it was pretty cool that 1331 equals 1889, which just lends even more credence to that theory. All right, where are we? We just crossed the 1 hour mark into this video, so thanks to everybody for tuning in. YouTube has finally decided to show me how many people are watching my video live. So I think this is probably a record. We're up near like 140. So thanks to everybody who jumped in and checked this out. Hope you're all looking at the date June 20th. It's really incredible. And, I haven't heard anything in the media that seems to suggest that Trump is being threatened or whatever. But who knows? Like I said, it's going to be a ritualistic date either way. So we're 1 hour in. We just have a couple of more things to go over. And these are a little bit quicker than what I was looking at before. So let's get into this. The Grenfell Tower fire. You guys remember this event? The deadliest residential fire in England since World War II. I believe it was the deadliest fire at least in the country, maybe not the world, in 2017, but it was big. And this Grenfell Tower fire was on June 14th, which is Donald Trump's 71st birthday. And of course, in numerology, we can connect this to 72. Because this was essentially the first day of Trump's 72nd year. It caused 72 deaths. Grenfell fire equals 72. It was in West London, England, 72. And could it be that the fire at Grenfell Tower, 160-191, was a clue for the assassination, 160-191? In Jewish Gematria, Grenfell Tower equals 1318. Revelation 13:18 reveals the number of the beast as 666. Notice how Grenfell Tower fire equals 99 and 90, which is a lot like the numbers 666 flipped upside down. Remember the moon, 90 and 99, very connected to 666. The moon equals 283. 666 equals 2083. If you add the Roman numerals of the moon's diameter in miles, 2160, to the gematria of the moon, you get 666. The moon is 2,160 miles wide. 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. So you get it. We have a 666 riddle here. And 666 is the number of the beast, which is 198. Grenfell Tower fire also equals 198. So does West London, England. Now the number 666 is 3 sixes. It's also the 36th triangular number. Add every number 1 through 36, you get 666. Well, if you measure from the fire to June 20th, 2020, you get 3 years and 6 days. .666, referring to the mathematics of the circle, which equals 666 and 216. Mathematical perfection, 666. We'll check out how mathematics equals 112. The easiest mathematics equation is 1 plus 1 equals 2, I think. Circle equals 112. The name Donald, also 112. And this fire was also 1,102 days before June 20th. London, England, 220, 131. Remember crucifixion, 131. And then Donald John Trump, 220. So London, Trump, fire, all with the same gematria as well. I also thought it was funny how they blamed the fire on a refrigerator. Remember this number? Refrigerator equaling 1139, crucifixion, twins, 1331. Okay, and then to go home in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about the death of George Floyd and how it was a ritual related to the assassination of Martin Luther King. And There were a few really important things I left out of my video, either because I forgot about them or I hadn't yet discovered them. So I'm going to be pointing out those as well, but some of this might be a duplicate. Not really much of it, really, actually. All right, so first let's look at the page of George Floyd here. And they still give us this October 14th, 1973 birthday, and thank goodness they do, because this birthday is so flippin' perfect. And how about this, another junior? What are the odds that half the people we see in the news are juniors? Are people really not coming up with new names for their children in this country? Anyway, look, George Perry Floyd, we talked about this rule of Colel, the one-off rule. I think it's interesting that George Perry Floyd equals 201 and 231. Very, very close to Martin Luther King, 200 and 232. In English Gematria, Martin Luther King equals 1109. George Floyd equals 119. These men were killed by the Eclipse Crucifixion Code. 119. And now we're told that George Floyd is from Fayetteville, North Carolina, where he was born. 119. I guess I should talk about the other golfer named Floyd. Or notice how in Fayetteville there was a man named Raymond Floyd, a golfer who won the Masters. That's a whole other post. I might talk about that here. But what else is interesting about George Perry Floyd? Well, notice how he has English Gematria of 1929. Martin Luther King was born in the year 1929. Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech in the year 1963. I want you to notice how 320 equals 1963. Now, the number 320 is super, super significant to this whole thing. And it's not hard to see. If you look at the arrest video, George Floyd was pulled from a vehicle that had the number 320 on the back of it. It was a Mercedes model 320. The police then dragged him behind an undercover cruiser which had number 320 on it. Maybe not undercover, but unmarked. So he's pulled out of a car that says 320, killed behind a vehicle that has the number 320 on it. Well, George Floyd was exactly 32 weeks after his birthday when he died. Remember Minneapolis, Minnesota? Minnesota, the 32nd state. So isn't it interesting that 320 equals 1963, the year of the I Have a Dream speech? Well, if we instead write 320, check this out, 237 and 93. Minneapolis, Minnesota, on the 93rd meridian, 237 and 93. George Floyd's October 14th birthday, measuring to Martin Luther King's January 15th birthday, is 93 days. And then in reduction, Martin Luther King Jr. equals 93. In the year 93, a man named Lloyd Jowers, who was later dismissed as a conspiracy theorist, said that someone else killed Martin Luther King, not who was convicted. So Minnesota, the 32nd state admitted to the Union, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. on a date with a life lesson number of 32. Remember, Christ equals 32. Assassinated, 32. The 32nd prime, 131. Assassinated, 131. Crucifixion, 131. Minnesota admitted on the 131st day of the year. In Jewish Gematria, Martin Luther King equals 739, which is the 131st prime number. I also find it interesting that assassinated equals 193, the 44th prime. Martin Luther King assassinated on the date 4/4. Remember John F. Kennedy, 193 as well, and 131. I did not realize John F. Kennedy had the same gematria as assassinated. But guys, there's even more with the number 320. Notice how George Floyd equals 178 in reverse. 320 equals 178. What about the 70 in reduction? George Floyd was killed on a date with primary numerology of 70. In reverse, this is 146. He died on the 146th day of a leap year. And notice how this is 56 in reverse. Well, his death fell 56 years after the I Have a Dream speech, which was in August, 56 years. But guys, there's even more. Let's write out 320 once more. Remember the 1963, the year of the speech? We'll look at 163 and 134. Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream. 163, 134. What about the 287? George Floyd, born on October 14th, the 287th day of the year. Martin Luther King dying a span of 287 days before his birthday. 287 also found in the gematria of Donald John Trump. 287. You may recall there was a plane crash in New York City just before Trump was born on the date 28/7. There was another plane crash into the Trump building 25 days before the birth of Trump. Trump 25, and it was on 20/5. Anyway. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech was on 8/28. And 8/28 falls 8 months, 28 days before George Floyd's death. Notice how I Have a Dream was the date leaving 125 days in the year. 125 is 5 times 25. Look at George Floyd's death date, 5/25. I Have a Dream, that was also the 240th day of the year. If you measure to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., it was 240 weeks later. So the assassination of Martin Luther King on the date leaving 271 days in the year. Now, on the date that George Floyd died, Donald Trump was 27,010 days old. And on the date of the GOP convention, he'd be 27,100 days old. Remember, it was that story about Trump threatening to move the convention, published on the same day that George Floyd died. So these are related. I'll come back to this 220 in a second, but what I thought to do is I said, okay, look, if the George Floyd and Martin Luther King incidents are a numerical premonition of the assassination of Trump, then we would probably see a number that's relevant to JFK when we measure from where George Floyd died to where MLK died. And I couldn't believe it. If you measure from the Lorraine Motel where Martin Luther King Jr. died to where George Floyd died, you get 1,122 kilometers. Remember, JFK was assassinated on 11/22 of 1963. Just noticing this is the same year. The assassination and the Martin Luther King speech were pretty close, 86 days apart. So June 20th this year is 19,070 days after the MLK assassination, and 197 is the 45th prime number. Trump is the 45th president. Martin Luther King also had the number 666 coded into his assassination. It was a date with primary numerology of 95 and the 95th day of a leap year. 666 days is 95 weeks, and 666 equals 95 in reduction. Remember the 666, real relevant to JFK and Trump. And then I think to finish off the numerology in this video, I'm going to go back and look at the 220, okay? Because if you measure from I Have a Dream to the death of MLK, you get 220 days after the anniversary. And this stands out because Martin Luther King died 2 months and 20 days after his birthday. George Floyd was born a span of 2,020 days after MLK died. And then he died in the date leaving 220 days in the year 2020. Donald John Trump, 220. The governor of Minnesota, where George Floyd died, Timothy James Waltz, 220. Total solar eclipse equals 202. And George Floyd died exactly 202 weeks before the 2024 Great American Eclipse. The story made news 202 days before the 2020 total eclipse. It's really pretty absurd what they're doing to us with the numerology here. All right, guys, so I'm turning it back to the live chat. I'm about to wrap this video up. We're nearly 80 minutes in. Think about this, guys. I just spent 80 minutes decoding an event that hasn't even happened. Am I crazy or what? But, again, I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years, and I've never made a video saying, hey, something significant is lining up for this date. I guess the August 11th video last year was a bit of an exception, but I specifically said nothing major will happen on that date because the alignments are too good. When I look at these alignments, it seems like they really are coding for something. And again, I don't know if it's an assassination, but something very ritualistic. Of course, JFK assassination, by the way, occurring on the date 11/22. It was also in the 187th year of the United States. One more random numerical fact I wanted to throw out there. I pointed out in a previous video how George Floyd died 52 years and 52 days after MLK was assassinated. Well, what I also noticed is that if you measure from his death on 5/25, right, 52, if you measure from that date to the date 5/2/52, notice how you get a double 666, 11/666, and then 1666. You tell me. So, once again, I've just spent a long time decoding something that hasn't happened. This is definitely a prediction of sorts. And I almost feel like it's impossible for me to be right. I don't know if that's how this all works because, you know, a lot of people said if 9/11 was worked out before it happened that it wouldn't have happened. I don't know if I believe that. I feel like it would be too damaging to have a video like this, you know, around the internet claiming something was going to happen on a specific date and then having it be true. Like, it's all the proof that we would need. And it's too much proof. Like, I don't think they would give us that proof, but if I didn't make a video about this and do work on June 20th, I mean, I feel like I would have been doing you guys an injustice. As far as how they do all this planning, is it a supercomputer? Well, yeah. I mean, there's a couple of different ways of looking at it. You can say, are they using a supercomputer to carry this numerology out? Or do we live in a matrix that is essentially a supercomputer, which I am totally down with. I totally believe it. And, you know, this spiritual matrix that we live in sends people here by the numbers, and it's just funny. I guess what I'm getting at is that I have a lot of numerology pertaining to what I'm teaching, so maybe that's why I'm here, is to change the course of things. So yeah, I mean, a supercomputer, absolutely, just like Earth, the supercomputer known as Earth, I think I might actually wrap this video up, though, because I'm just getting a little tired of talking, and I don't want to make this video too intimidating for people to look at, but holy crap, guys. I mean, there's so many things involved here, and there's connections I didn't even mention. For instance, the Paul Manafort incidences. So I promise this will be the last thing I bring up in this video. But this is important. So the reason I bring Paul Manafort up in this is here. So Donald Trump equals 138. Well, I forget which numbers they have that match, but let's see. Paul Manafort. Okay, so they got 138 and 48 and 589. The three most significant ciphers they match. And 849. So Jewish and English gematria. Paul Manafort matches Donald Trump. So I always said when these stories about Paul Manafort going to jail, they were all numerical recreations or premonitions of Trump going to jail or being assassinated. That's always what I said this was. There's even 146 weeks between these two men's birthdays, and Trump was born on 14/6. So this man goes to jail on June 15th of 2018. Measuring from that date to June 20th is 2 years and 5 days. Trump equals 25. Death equals 25. Manafort, not 25. And then there was another story published several months later that told us Manafort was sentenced to 47 months in prison. And I was like, really? 47? Trump 47? Trump 470? And then Manafort 47. Manafort and Donald Trump both have the same middle name, John 47. Well, anyways, this sentencing was on what date? June 14th. I'm sorry, March 7th, 2019. March 7th, 2019. And look what happens when you measure to June 20th. 471 days. So he's sentenced to 47 months in jail. Trump, 470. And this happens 471 days before June 20th. And you could even argue that this story actually made headlines on March 8th. See, it was updated March 8th. And this is what they do. They print a story late one night, update it the next day. So this was headlines March 8th, exactly 470 days before June 20th. Sentenced to 47 months. Trump, 47. Can you believe it? Like, the point I'm making here is that I have not found anything that's very significant to Trump that has not lined up amazingly with June 20th. What about Vladimir Putin, right? Because Russia equals 470, just like Trump. So what about the birthday of Vladimir Putin? I know he's born on October 7th, 52, but I just want to pull it up. 10/7/52. So this guy's going to have some matches too, because this guy's full name, 313, 389, 600, 306, 313, 389. Right? Number of the beast, 47. Trump, Russia, 470. So we're going to get some interesting numbers when we measure to June 20th. Oh, wow. Look at this. 67, 257. Blood sacrifice, 67, 257. Total solar eclipse, 67, 257. There's a solar eclipse one day after June 20th. Putin also born on a date with 88 numerology. Beast 88. Trump 88. Wow. So, yeah, like I'm saying, it all lines up a little bit too well. All right, guys, I'm going to get some lunch. That was a bit exhausting. Thanks to everybody who jumped in and made this stream worthwhile. I think everybody needs to kind of, mutter a little bit about the date, June 20th. And, even if nothing happens on June 20th, I'm going to come back and say that it was because we spotted the date that nothing happened. So even if this prediction turns out to be wrong, it proves nothing. You know what I mean? I guess best case scenario, it turns out to be right. Hopefully no one really dies, right? But you never know with the mainstream media. I mean, the George Floyd incident certainly seems like it was a hoax. I guess the most comical thing of all would be if Trump comes back after like 3 days, right? If like he gets coronavirus and goes into a 3-day coma and then comes back or something, this shit would be hilarious. All right, I'm going to take a break from numbers for a little bit. I think it'll be a couple days till I do another post. Thanks, everybody. Peace, love, God bless. For all of you saying it'll be June 14th, come on, guys. You do a video that explains all the alignments to June 14th. I bet you can't do it. It's not going to work as well, so have fun with that. All right, guys. Peace, love, God bless. Adios.